You're
Go
all,
for
you're
it.
all ready to go.
Go
Okay.
for it.
All right. Excellent.
Ask away. I'll answer.
All right. Well, the first one's very easy. Les, we're going to ask you your name and where you were born and when.
Okay. My name is Leslie John Wyse. My friends call me Les. People who don't know me sometimes call me Lester. I don't usually correct them, but it does irritate me sometimes. It's Leslie. I was born in Toledo. I was born on May 31st, 1944, a long time ago.
Okay. And you were born in Toledo. Did you grow up in? You grew up in Genoa.
I grew up in Genoa. I've lived in Genoa, except for my college years. I've lived in Genoa all my life. So 80 years of Genoa minus the college years.
Now, where did you grow up in Genoa?
I grew up, started out on 9th Street and moved to 5th Street and then moved to Washington Street, where I spent most of my formative years on Washington Street. And that was a good place for me to grow up with the kids in the neighborhood and things to that effect. About second or third grade, I moved there.
I'm trying to remember where you lived on Washington Street.
It was 308. It's across from what we would refer to as the United States Gypsum USG homes,
Okay.
which one of them is serious disrepair right now, but
Yeah.
one of them was moved.
And the other was moved and is now the home of the Bergmans.
Right, that is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
All right. Well, let's tell me more about your childhood growing up in Genoa.
First of all, growing up in Genoa is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful community. It is safe, and it was safe then. We could wander all around. I had great friends from elementary school on up through high school. Still in contact with some of them. Went to the camper building to start off with. I'm going to delve now into my deviousness here. We did not have kindergarten then. We started off in first grade. They herded us all into a room, and there were going to be 2 teachers. And I remember distinctly one of the teachers saying, "We'll just line them up and go every other kid, and you take every other one." And they turned their backs, and I arranged every kid so that I would get all my friends into the correct classroom, and they went every other kid, and the teacher looked, "Why, they're almost all boys in this classroom and all girls in that classroom." I thought, I'm an organizer. I've got this. I've got this. And then went to the, it would be the Bruner building. We were the first class in the Bruner building. And went to the junior high school with the high school kids. And went from on to college. Growing up in here was a great experience for me. Friends galore. Like I said, it's different now than it was then. We played outside all the time. We played baseball, we played basketball, we played games that we just made up out of nothing, and it was, okay, your house, my house, in between houses, those kind of things.
What were some of those games that you played that you made up?
Did
you play kick the can?
We played kick the can down the street, and of course we had the proverbial when the street lights come on, you come home kind of thing. And it worked. We definitely played kick the can. We played the hide and seek kind of thing. We played with water balloons and things of that effect, things our parents weren't quite sure of. How'd you get all wet? I have no idea. I don't know, but I did.
So who were some of your close buddies and friends back in those days?
David LaPlante was one of my favorite friends. Dave, great guy. He's now he's an artist, and he lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico now, and we contact each other through email and things to that effect, and I look at his artwork. He's a great artist. If you need to buy art, call Dave. Toby George, Roger Hesselbart were friends of mine. When I was young, 4, 5, 6, Lynette Recker lived real close to us. The Coaster family lived across from us. So Linda Coaster was close to my age, and we hung out and did things together. When I moved to Washington Street, Dix Martin was a good friend of mine. We played basketball and baseball together. So those are some of the people. I'm sure I'm forgetting something. When I lived on Fifth Street, the Vine twins, Denny and Donnie Vine, were good friends of mine through adventures. Lots of really great people that were very, very fun to be with.
Yeah. Genoa has some interesting characters.
Oh, absolutely. And some of them were characters, but they're all good people.
Yeah, that's what makes, I think, probably every town special, but Genoa, because that was our experience.
Right.
So we know those people. What were some of the people that stand out, or some of the memories you might have, any particular memories that stand out, stories or anything that happened when you were a child?
Well, let's go back to the Vine twins. We talk about playing games. We decided that slingshots were a marvelous toy, which they could be. But when we graduated to using BBs in the slingshots, that became a little more dangerous than we expected, and I ended up with 2 fake front teeth we played war for real. So that was an adventure. My mother was librarian, and when the library was in the town hall, and I remember going into her and I said, I have a problem, and tears are, I opened up and the teeth were gone. And she, so yeah, that was interesting. Again, just lots of baseball games and things that we did, and basketball that we would travel around and do wherever we could find a hoop to do.
Did you play a lot of sports?
I played basketball in high school. I saw a lot of bench time. Baseball was my best participation sport. We played baseball with the American Legion and traveled all over northwestern Ohio and played in places like Celeryville and things that are, out of state. I played baseball against Jim Leland. He played for Pemberville. He was good then and good baseball player at the time.
Wow.
Some other major leaguers that came through there embarrassed me a couple times, and sometimes I got lucky and got hits off of them. But,
that's great. Those are good memories.
Oh, they are great memories. They're great memories. Absolutely.
Well, talking about some of the people that lived here, any particular personalities that come to mind that you can remember from those early years in the 40s, 50s, or 60s that were maybe standouts?
Personalities. It's a good question, Lou. Daggone it. I don't know. There were some strong personalities, obviously. Into the teaching realm, there were some of my teachers had strong personalities, and some of them very good. Teachers that stand out to me would be like Dwayne Yoder, Alan Shirk. Great teachers influenced me a lot, caused me to be a history major in college. So they had strong personalities that I really admired, and I thought, man, that's a good person, and that's something I'd like to do.
How did they inspire you? What did they do?
Just made it interesting. I'd always wanted to be a basketball coach since I was like 3rd or 4th grade. For some reason, in my mind, I was going to be a basketball coach, which was not my best sport, but I still wanted to be a basketball coach. And so what am I going to, I have to do something else, right? You just can't go on and be a basketball coach. You have to work in a school system. And what am I going to teach in school? And math was not my thing. So I thought, well, history, these guys are good history teachers. They made it interesting. I'll do that. So then I became a history major. En route to becoming a basketball coach was my main goal.
And well, we'll get to where you went to school and how that progressed, but we'll stay right now in the sort of in the formative years, if you will. We'll stay in the 40s and 50s, and so what? We've talked a lot with a number of people about some of the things that happened here in Genoa that has always been I guess a focal point every year was, of course, the homecoming.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, on Main Street, shutting down Main Street, it was something that we as kids, first with our parents, but then on our own, used to just wander through for hours, and we had a few cents here or there, quarter here, a quarter there, and try a few games and ride a few rides. And of course, as it grew older, look for a few female companions. to, see who's up here, who's here.
That was a big part of it.
It was a great, to shut down Main Street like that was really good. And as they moved it over to the quarry area, I guess to use those words, I don't know, it lost some of its allure to me. It just wasn't the same. Not probably because I was older, but maybe because it just didn't have that home feel to it.
I remember distinctly hearing, of course, they would call out the numbers every night because you could hear the loudspeaker.
Oh, yes.
John Warner, I think, was
Yes.
Jack Warner was the voice of the homecoming.
He was not only the voice of the Comets, he was the voice of the homecoming. I can still hear his voice in my head now that you've mentioned his name. And he would, winning numbers, visit this, the food stand's now open, this is now going on, bingo's now starting. It was great. Really something. The quarry was in my former. I don't know what it's like now, although we'll get into jobs later, but it was the social hub of Genoa at the time. It was usually the beaches were full, the rafts were full. My parents, what are you going to do? I'm going to go to the quarry. Mm-hmm. Okay, goodbye. See you in a few hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Come home for dinner. And everybody would, in the summertime, go there. It was fun. Everybody in Genoa could swim to some degree. Oh, golly, I'm trying to think of the guy that taught me how to swim. The last name was Dunn, but I can't remember his first name now. But he was at the University of Toledo. He worked there. But anyhow, everybody in Genoa liked the quarry, and you could either fish there, you could swim there, or you could just go hang out there.
It was, you're right, it was the social center, especially in the summertime. Absolutely,
and as people got more and more home pools, and as kids begin to work earlier and drive places, I don't think it's what it used to be. I still wander by there every once in a while. It just doesn't look as crowded. Of course, maybe that's me. As you're a smaller, younger person, perspectives change on how crowded things are and how big or small things are.
What are some of the things that you remember that have changed in Genoa? I know the downtown area has changed dramatically from what you remember it.
Of course, the schools, moving out of town, which to me is a good thing because I was on the school board when most of that happened. That's a big change. You can't walk to school anymore, which we all did at the time. We would walk to school from our various houses, or if you were lucky enough to have a friend in high school that could drive, they would pick you up and drive 2 whole blocks and put you next to the school. So that's a big change. And when we were younger, I think I could name where almost every kid in my class lived. And I would know who lived in this house and who lived in that house. And I don't think people can do that anymore. It just doesn't seem like that's that kind of thing. And I'm not knocking Genoa. Genoa is still a wonderful community, but there seems to be more of a we know everybody kind of thing now.
Well, you would, to digress personally, my remembrance is that if you did something on Superior Street, it got back to Washington Street real fast.
Quite quickly. I could walk, and my mother would look at me like, I've only walked 5 blocks. How in the world do you know what happened? This cannot be. I did it. I'm wrong.
It was, the communication was amazing.
Yes, for not having the social networks that we have, it was the phone, the party lines. Pick up the phone, someone else is on the phone, you've been through that. She hasn't, but we've been, I can remember my neighbor across the street in one of the USG houses calling and asking to talk to me. She said, I am like 8 months pregnant. When I need to call the doctor or something, I would appreciate it if you hung up right away when you're, and well, of course I would. Yeah, obviously. I mean, she knew I would, but she wanted to remind me of why I should hang up so that she could get out. And a lot of people don't understand that. They have no idea what we're talking about, but you understand and I understand.
Yeah, exactly. Growing up on Washington Street down near the U.S. Gypsum, what do you remember about U.S. Gypsum being that close to that at that time?
Well, it was most of it was great because they built a basketball court, they built tennis courts, they had a ball diamond there. And so that was really good for us. And again, we're going to jog later, but I did work there in between years in my college things. But there was lime dust and there was blasting and things to that effect too. So, but we get used to it. Those of us who live in town. I can remember having people from out of town over, and there'd be a big boom and shake, and I didn't even move. And I go, "What was that?" I said, "What?" Oh no, yeah, it was they're just blasting out there. It happens.
Yeah. Well, and you also live close to the Genoa Theater.
Loved it. For a minimal amount of money, popcorn and a movie was a great thing. It was a great thing. Good movies, and don't ask me to remember. No, I can't remember precisely which ones I like the best, but it was a great thing. Again, within walking distance, and even if we got out when it was dark, I was walking all of 1 block to come home, and we would meet kids there, and we would sometimes have to be chastised for making too much noise. The person who ran the theater would go, "Would you guys be quiet?" I said, "Yeah, okay. You're right. You're right."
Yeah. And since you were born in 44,
mm-hmm.
So born in 44, if I remember, during the 40s and early 50s, the New York Central was still very active
mm-hmm.
on our train tracks.
Yes.
We had 3 railroads at one time with 2 interurbans, but they
yes.
were gone.
They were gone by then, yeah.
But you would have remembered the New York Central.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the train tracks were something we were taught at a very young age to be careful of, stay away from, pay attention. If you're out on your bike, just don't go whizzing across the tracks. The stop, look, and listen thing became very important, and we understood it was, that train's not going to leave much of a mark behind if it hits you. So
you remember the nighttime switching of the trains
mm-hmm.
when they would come through.
Yeah, and we were close enough that we could hear a lot of that. But again, you get used to it, and it just becomes part of the background noise, like the birds chirping and the crickets and whatever else. It becomes part of that.
So, well, we'll move on a little bit into. You said you did play sports. You played mm-hmm. basketball and baseball.
We did not have a high school baseball team, so we played summer baseball with what we called in the pony leagues or traveling teams and American Legion baseball. Things to that effect. And again, that was, as far as my participation, that was my most skilled. I was more skilled at that than basketball. So I don't know why I wanted to become a basketball coach, but I just liked it.
Where did you play basketball at that time, or baseball at that time?
Most of our games, when we were younger, we first started out from the U.S. Gypsum Field, down the lane,
mm-hmm.
That way. Then we moved to, I remember my father was very instrumental in this, and some other guys. They filled in the dump. You familiar with that now? They filled in the dump. He didn't, but somebody did. And they built baseball diamonds on a baseball diamond on top of the dump. And because the gypsum field became so busy that they needed another place. So I played there like when I was in junior high. And then in high school, you moved to the Waterworks Park down by the water tower and the water plant was. Played there through Legion ball. There were diamonds, abundant diamonds.
I was just curious about that because, I remember playing on that one down by the Waterworks. Not anything organized. I just lived across the street. So that was a place that we would play a lot.
Absolutely. And when we weren't doing organized things, we would call people and get people together and knock on people's doors. Come on, we're going to go play.
Just a pickup game.
Yeah, just a pickup game.
And that's something I wonder if that even goes on.
I don't know. We would get a lot of kids together. The Baird brothers, Bob and Bill Baird, would play with us, and Dix and Martin, and people would all gather together, and we would choose up sides and play ball because we didn't have the phone and the iPad. And
you didn't need adults to tell you how to do it.
No. It never broke down. we didn't need an internet connection. We didn't need Wi-Fi. We needed a ball, and sometimes they were sort of ratty, and sometimes we had to switch gloves with other person. No, I forgot. We'd use somebody else's, but it was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. So, well, let's go back a little bit and tell me about your parents.
My parent, John and Mary Wyse. I was born when my dad was in the Pacific in World War II, and he, the son of Ray and Odessa Wyse. My mother was from and they were from Genoa at the time, and my mother was from Woodville. She was a Heminger from Woodville, switching back and forth between maternal and paternal. The paternal grandparents came from Oak Harbor. Her name was Peters. She came from Oak Harbor. The paternal side came from Europe to Canada and then down into the Sleeping Bear Sand Dune area in Michigan and then to Oak Harbor. Legend has it that they were in the lumber business and came down that way. When they married, Odessa and Ray, they moved to Genoa. Ray worked for Willie's, which is now Stellantis or something to that effect. I don't know what it is anymore. Making Jeeps for World War II. At the time he had participated in World War I, but he was making Jeeps they were using in World War II at the time. So, and then they had my father, and my grandfather became paternal grandfather, a very skilled mechanic through his days at Jeep, and opened up on Washington Street a garage, car repair place on Washington Street. And then when he retired, he built, which I loved, a sporting goods shop. And you didn't know Genoa had a sporting goods shop, did you? You see, you're learning things. On where the crematorium is now. There was a building there, and he opened up a sporting goods shop called the Sportsman Shop, and I loved it because he would take me out to do things like they would have him sight in rifles for deer hunting, and he would take me out and teach me how to do that. He had fishing gear, and he would let me use the cast, taught me how to cast and do those kind of things. It was great. Maternal side, my maternal grandfather worked at Riverside Dairy in Woodville. He was a milkman, which again, people don't understand that too much. And my wonderful maternal grandmother stayed at home and took care of things. Going back to the paternal side, I'm switching back and forth on you here, Lou. My grandmother was a teacher, and she taught to start with in the Oak Harbor School District, and I find this very interesting. I taught in the same very room that she taught in when she first started. In the same building, the same exact room, which I thought, wow. Because she said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm here," and that's where I started. So, okay.
How many years was that separated?
Oh, my goodness. See, this is why I can't be a math major. I would guess 40, maybe 50, something in that effect.
That made you feel pretty good.
It did. It really did. And I took her on a tour of her old room and brought her up here. I think she probably thought her decorations and artwork were much better than mine, but she didn't say anything.
Now Ray,
my paternal grandfather.
Grandfather. Did he have a car dealership too, or did he sell cars?
He did, and I'm not sure how that worked. Yeah. If he just was doing it in conjunction with the garage or not. I don't think he did it very long, but he did. I know.
And that was on Washington Street.
That was on Washington Street, one of those older buildings on Washington Street. And I think it's the village is using it now for something, storage, something to that effect. But I know that's where my dad learned how to drive. Everything was a stick shift, and they put the car up on up on the rack, and
Yeah.
so he couldn't hurt anything, but he would just, shift gears and learned how to use the clutch like that.
Interesting.
That's a story he told me anyhow,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'm assuming it's true. He had no reason not to tell me the truth.
Wow. That's amazing. So what kind of an impact or what kind of effect do you think your parents had, or some of the memories you might have of your parents and some of the stories you had growing up with them? Did you have siblings? I didn't even ask you that.
I have, it's almost a two-family thing. I have a sister that I'm 13 years older than, and a brother that I'm 18 years older than. So Robin and Paul. Robin lives in northern Michigan now. Unfortunately, her wonderful husband just passed away a few years ago. And Paul, my brother, 18 years younger, lives in Woodville with his wife, Carolyn. Both wonderful people.
And but how did your growing up, your parents, what sort of an influence did they have on you and what you came to be?
Honesty, frugality. Don't spend it unless you know you have it. That kind of thing. Forthrightness. Don't trick people. Tell them what's going on. Things like, especially the honesty part of it. They prided themselves on being good people.
Mm-hmm.
So
and were they active in the community as well?
Yes. My dad was on council here in Genoa for 3-4 terms, something to that effect. My mother was in various clubs, and I can't remember the names of all of them, but she was in various clubs here in Genoa with groups of women. And again, she was a librarian when the library was in the town hall, and worked at Sears after I got out of college just for something to do, keep herself busy, or she could get all the latest toys quickly for her grandchildren.
So the town hall library. Now, anybody who's much younger than us would not remember that at all.
No.
How would you describe? Do you remember that library and where
quite
it was?
Well. When I got done at the Bruner Building, and some days I would go there and I would read all the Tom Corbett and Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and all those books, and I would just sit there and I'm very blessed because I get to read them first before anybody else, and I would walk in and take them out of the cartons. My mother, I have not checked that in yet. I said, we'll be good. So it was, again, quite small, quite different than the wonderful library we have here now, which is fabulous.
And where was in the town hall? Where was it located?
Where the council chambers are now. Okay. So you'd walk up into those steps, and that was it. I mean, there were stacks and books and shelving, and
I remember the smell.
Yes.
That's very distinctive. Good smell.
Good smell. Good smell. I love to read. Yeah. I'd much rather read than watch television, except for sports. I'd much rather read than watch TV. And I think that had a lot to do with my idea that I'm going to read a lot. I can sit down with a book and just immerse myself in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And still do.
Still do.
Yeah.
And still do.
That's good. So was that something you learned from your mother, I assume, the librarian?
From my mother and from my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. She, being a teacher, she was quick to correct my grammar. No, it's not me and somebody. It's, she went through, and she was a reader, and she made sure I had materials to read.
One of the things we've talked about with, again, some other folks, and that is how the main street of Genoa, the retail area, has changed over the years, and what you remember. We were talking with someone about the bowling alley. Do you remember the bowling
I absolutely remember the bowling alley. It was interesting. I wasn't much of a bowler, but I did go up there with kids, sometimes, and we would bowl for a minimal amount, very cheap. By today's standards, and you go back when you'd bowl a while. I remember Platts 5 and Tin store, which I think is where the pottery place has its workshops there. That was my first job, by the way, was working for Mr. Platt. They were neighbors, and I probably was 7th grade or 8th grade over Christmas season. Move this, move that, do this, do that. So that Felbinger's, where our cafe is now, their daughter Beverly was a friend of mine. We would stop in there and get this, the soda or the milkshake or something of that effect. Yeah, it was a different time. It was fun. It was enjoyable. Again, you could walk into every shop, Johnny Desmond's barber shop and stuff. You could just walk in there and sit down and read magazines. You didn't have to be getting your hair cut. And we'd talk about fishing, and then I'd wander on back out. It was a very good thing. You knew almost every merchant, and they knew you.
And knew what you wanted.
Yes, absolutely. The Yankee Peddler. Yeah. A little later with Roger Hesselbart. Yes. A clothing store here in Genoa. Knew my sizes, knew what I wanted, even through when I was teaching at Oak Harbor. It was just, you'd stop there and get a shirt or a pair of pants or something, knew what I wanted.
It was a different time.
It was. And I'm not being dismissive of these times. These are good times too. But back then it just seemed to be more of a homey kind of feel.
Yeah, a little more Norman Rockwell.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, let's see. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about, so after high school, you wanted to be a history teacher. After high school, then where did Les Wyse go then?
I went to Miami University, the real Miami, the one in Ohio, not the fake one down in Florida. As we like to say, we were a university while you still belong to Spain. So, figure that out. So that was good. Why Miami? I wanted to go far away, but not too far away. And I enjoyed some of their sporting activities. I would go to Bowling Green, and when they played Miami, I thought, seems like a nice school spirit kind of thing. So that's where I ended up. And that has influenced my life beyond what you would ever, you cannot fathom how much Miami influenced my life. I still, every Monday, if I'm digressing too much, let me know. Every Monday, Zoom with the people that I lived with. Sometimes it'd be 9 or 10 of us. Before that, we would call each other, but now we Zoom with each other. If you're on, you're on. If you're not, you're not. I was fortunate enough through an active weather, which I won't get into, to room in the athletic dorm at Miami. So all my friends that are on this Zoom call were varsity athletes in Miami. Probably half of them were Division I coaches in football, basketball, track, things to that effect. I'm the only non-guy in there, but we just had a great time. I had a great time there, and still get together with them. Every spring we'll get together for a luncheon. Went to Maine a little bit ago and got together with the friends I made there are my lifetime friends, even more than my high school friends who I love. But these friends from Miami that's my family. It was a beautiful school and loved almost every minute of it, except for some of the tests and things. But the rest of it was marvelous. And after that, then I got my master's degree at the University of Toledo. Commuted back and forth.
So then you were ready to begin a teaching career at that point?
Right. I taught at Carroll School out on Route 19 north of Oak Harbor for a few years, and then I taught at Rocky Ridge School in downtown Rocky Ridge School for a couple of years, and then I went to the junior high school in Oak Harbor, the old high school, and taught there. That's where I ended up my teaching career, and I became an assistant principal there, an athletic director there, a principal there, as I finished up as a principal
And how long were you there? Total about 30 years or so?
Altogether in that school system, 33 years. They offered a buyout, and I said, sure. I mean, not just to me. They offered it to everybody, and maybe it was just for me. No, it was that was for everybody.
How do you think growing up in Genoa prepared you to do the type of thing you did in your life as an educator?
It's the same kind of community, the same kind of kids, same kind of families. Some farming, some industrial, some mix of things. Very, very good people, solid people. You always have some that are crazy, but most of them were pretty good. So yeah, growing up in this community, it's not like growing up here and then moving into inner city Toledo or Cleveland or someplace. You're going to the same spot. And then
go ahead.
No, when we would compete, it was interesting because I started my basketball coaching career at Oak Harbor, and then in high school and junior high, and then in high school I was fortunate to be mentored by Dave Christie. I became the JV coach at Oak Harbor there, and we would come back to Genoa, and then people were not kind. Verbally abusive would be putting it mildly, of how I could possibly be coaching for a dreaded rival against my old school. And yeah, it was like, oh, son of a gun, would you call me what?
You always seemed so nice.
Yeah, when I lived here, I did still live there.
Yeah, and that, so when you taught at Oak Harbor, you were living here in Genoa. You never left Genoa.
Never moved. We thought about it, and we ended up building our home on Cherry Street as a, quote, starter home. And then my wife was also teaching in Oak Harbor. And we thought, man, we'll get this going and then we'll move to Oak Harbor. And instead we stayed there. We've been there for 50 years. Same house.
Wow. That's, yeah, I think I know where that is. It's by the care center.
Yes, correct. Across from the care center. Correct. And when we lived there, it was a dead-end street. Across the street were cornfields, and another way was a big woods. It was a perfect place to raise children. They could play in the street because the only people coming down that street were going to our house. Yeah. And my kids were fortunate enough. And I found out later that they would go off into that woods and go swimming in a quarry back there. I didn't know they were doing that. And I probably would have discouraged that. No, probably about it. I would have discouraged. Now they could swim like fish. That's not a problem. But I still would have discouraged it.
So tell me about your family.
Wonderful wife. Mm-hmm. Most beautiful woman in the world. Her maiden name was Limke, again, a Genoa native, one of 4 sisters. And she is a teacher also. Well, we both retired now. And she taught in the Oak Harbor School District also. So that was good for us. Sometimes we would drive together, and sometimes we had to go separately, depending on where we were teaching and what was. When I started coaching, it didn't work because I had to have practice afterwards. So that was interesting. We have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. Our oldest, Tim, is a Duke graduate and a Michigan Law School graduate. He served in the Navy between graduating from Duke and Michigan Law School. And now he's a federal prosecutor, dealing mostly in cyber crimes to start with, but now he's moved up in the ranks, so he's in charge of that, of an area of white collar stuff. Our daughter, Melissa, graduated from Miami also, got her master's at Colorado University. She's married, 2 kids, and she lives in Fort Collins, Colorado. She inherited something I don't have, which is language skills. I could not handle foreign languages well, among other things. And she is very fluent in Spanish, and she teaches half a day in Spanish and half a day in English at an inner city school in Fort Collins. And so she did that, and she passed that on to her children because she brought her children to that school instead of their local neighborhood school to that school. So they are also very fluent in Spanish, which is marvelous. marvelous thing. I wish I could speak another language as well as they do. So yeah, and Tim's kids, he lives in Grosse Pointe, Michigan now, and they are good kids, smart kids. And they're in high school at Grosse Pointe South. I get mixed up. Yeah, Grosse Pointe South.
So you and Linda have how many grandchildren?
4 grandchildren.
4.
2 in Michigan, 2 in Colorado. Boy and a girl in each one. The oldest is going to college in Arizona, and she is going to become a nurse, like her grandmother, her great grandmother. Linda's mom was a nurse at St. Charles for a long time, and Lily, that's her. The oldest is she's 20. Oh, I can't believe this. She wants to go into nursing, and she'll make a marvelous nurse.
Yeah, that's great. So I assume you visit them often.
We do, and we're going out again this spring. We do visit them. If you're going to go, we can go back and forth to Ann Arbor, to Grosse Pointe in an hour and a half. Well, it's a 2-day adventure out to Colorado, so we'll stay there for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and no sense going out and coming right back. Yeah. So it's a wonderful place. Wonderful place.
Sure, absolutely.
Take them fishing up in the mountains.
I lived there for 20 years.
Oh, where'd you live?
I lived in the Front Range.
I interview him.
What's that?
I said I'm going to interview him now.
Oh, yeah, I was in Denver and Colorado Springs. I still go out. That's my second.
Okay, great.
So I have 3 sons that live out there.
Great. Yeah, but then Fort Collins, north of Denver. So yeah.
A very friend of mine who's a instructor, journalism instructor at CSU.
Oh, okay.
We talked about it.
I love college towns, and CSU is a great college town. Fort Collins and CSU is a great university.
Didn't mean to digress into
No. You deserve airtime.
So, what are some of the things that we haven't talked about that maybe you wanted to talk about, and about the history or your time in Genoa, or your thoughts on Genoa, or just your life? Is there anything that you want to impart?
I didn't get into my multiple job history much.
Oh, that's right.
I started again in junior high school working at Platts for just one Christmas season. Yeah. I then became with Dave LaPlante, one of my best buddies. We worked at the quarry as bathhouse boys, checking people in and out, mowing lawns, things to that effect. Did that. And then I worked, watch now, as a hand stripper at the lime plant, USG, where we would, by hand, remove all the soils and stuff from the top of the limestone so that when they blasted it and it went down, it would be clean. So the rock going through the crusher and the plant had no foreign or little of foreign debris in it as possible, because they're going to make plaster and things out of it. I did that for a while. I was also out there. I put in part of the railroad tracks. Became a Gandy dancer and tore all the old tracks and put in new tracks, obviously not by myself. And then my most interesting job out there for one summer was I worked with the blasting people and drilled holes, filled holes, covered ears, put the hard hat on, blew down the walls, blew up the topsoil. And that was fascinating.
I was going to say, that had to be fascinating.
That was fascinating. Sure. I always thought it was going to be a precise thing, and it was more like, yeah, it looks like enough. It's okay. And I learned that we would, at lunch, we would put a stick of dynamite up on a board and throw ice picks at it, just for target practice. My first day there, I'm going, this can't be good, but no, it's not going to explode. Don't worry. It's just something we do to initiate rookies. Okay.
Yeah, the lime plant I worked there for a while myself. An interesting place.
Interesting place. Yeah. Wonderful people. Yeah. Some really good people. I met some people out there. I've seen you around town, but now I know who you are, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And then in between years at college, I went back to the quarry, and I ran the baseball program there for a while in the athletic fields and took care of mowing, dragging, those kind of things.
And who did you work with there at the quarry at that time?
The first time was Raleigh Henderson, a good boss. Yeah. And I think Jim Firestone ran it for a while when I was working there. It was a good summer job because when I first worked there, my first year there as a bathhouse boy with Dave, we made 48 cents an hour. 48, that's not $4.80, that's 48 cents an hour. But by the time I was an assistant there and doing the baseball programs and stuff, we were making pretty good money, and it was outside. It was pretty good.
Yeah, probably moved right up to $1.50 an hour.
Oh, I think at least maybe $1.48. I'm not sure.
So you'd mentioned that you were on the school board here.
That is correct. When I retired, my wife looked at me and said, "What are you going to do now?" Because she was still teaching. I said, "I don't know." She said, "Well, you have two choices. I've been talking to people, and you're either going to run for mayor of Genoa or you're going to run for the school board." I know nothing about sewers and roads and sidewalks and electrical things. So I said, "I do know about schools, so I'll run for the school board," and did fortunately get that position. I served 2 full terms, 8 years, and then filled in for somebody for another one. I was president for like 5 or 6 years, perhaps. And so that was an interesting job because you take a lot of grief, especially when we wanted to move school buildings out and build the complex, the campus out in there. And it was, to this day, it's financially, it's the way to go. Mm-hmm. Personnel-wise, it's the way to go. It just is a good thing.
But it was controversial at the time, wasn't it?
You're being polite. Yes, it was controversial at the time. How can you have a Genoa school district without a school in Genoa? Yeah. Because it is the Genoa school district, and we're going out there, and that's where we're going to go. And the state's giving us a gosh awful amount of money to help build a couple of these schools, and we're not going to turn down that money. So.
It's got to make you feel pretty good when you go out and you look at that campus. And
it does. It makes me feel really good to make it more personal. My name is on the plaques in almost all those buildings as being on the school board or president of the school board when those buildings were built, the board office, the elementary building, the junior high, and the athletic complexes out there. Yeah. So it does make me feel good.
Yeah, well, you realize you've accomplished something, many things in your life, and that's one of them.
Well, my family is the most important thing I accomplished, but yeah, that is good, and I enjoyed doing it, even though I got yelled at a lot, and seriously got yelled at a lot.
So what's next? Are you going to become mayor, or are you going to run for mayor?
No. I've been asked a few times, and the answer is no. I don't know enough about it. For me to do a job, any job, I have to understand it and know what I'm doing. And I don't know anything about the infrastructure other than it's good or bad, or it works or it doesn't work. Yeah, my electricity's on. Great. I love it. It's a wonderful town. But I don't know anything about it.
What were some of the learning curves you had to go through, though, with even Genoa? Because I'm sure, being a teacher or principal is one thing, but then a board member is another skill set or another
especially
level.
The financial part of it. Yeah. The financial part of it was something that, as a teacher, you want more money. You don't understand where the money's coming from. Yeah. And as an administrator, well, in Oak Harbor, I was fortunate enough we had all the money in the world at the time due to Davis Bessie. But John Harbaugh was on the board at the time. And John's a financial wizard. He is. John, if you're hearing this for any reason, I'm lying. And he taught me a lot about the finances of it. He and Alan Brown taught me a lot about the finances of it. And I began to understand where the money came from and what we could do with it and what we couldn't do with it. And by the time I got into the second or third year, I felt really comfortable with it. I understood the personnel part of it. I understood the curriculum part of it. I knew that, but I wasn't sure of the money parts of it. And they taught me how to do that. And what our treasurers were great, and still are great out there, dealing with limited finances and still turning out a good product.
So what's next for Les Wyse?
Is my wife going to see? Yes, she will. I better be careful. She may be the only person that watches this.
Oh, no.
No? Okay. I really don't know. We travel. We have traveled a lot. We've been to all 50 states. We have been to Europe. I don't like flying anymore. I don't mind flying. I just don't like airports. Airports just I'm too old or too whatever to stand in line that long and have people tell me things, do this, do that. So I'm probably going to stick to the continental United States and travel more there. That would be good. I just enjoy life. Our doctor at the time, Dr. Nara, when I retired, when I went out for my first physical after retirement, said, don't just sit on the couch. Just do things. And now I do things. Pickleball is my passion now. I love pickleball. I play at least 3 times a week, sometimes 4. And it's gotten into the fact that I'm addicted to the sport.
I hear that happens.
It's good, not just physically, because it is good physically, but mentally it's good to keep sharp because the scoring and who goes where and who does what is good mentally. They always say you need to keep your mind moving too, and it's true, but also socially. I've met a lot of wonderful people in Perrysburg and in Rossford and in Oregon and Northwood. I play all over, and in Colorado I play out there. Met a lot of wonderful people that I ordinarily would not have met or wouldn't know who the heck they are.
Are you pushing for pickleball courts in Genoa? Or?
Aha! News for you. We have 4 brand new pickleball courts backed by the baseball diamonds. They are not completely fenced in yet, but they are beautiful. And I had a lot to do with that. Mayor Bergman and I discussed that, where they would go, what direction they would have to face so the sun wouldn't blind you. As soon as they put the fencing up, there'll be 4 pickleball courts back there. So, yeah, it's become something that a lot of times especially in the good weather times, it's difficult to find a place to play, although there are more and more courts. And now there are enough courts indoors in the winter. Those outdoor courts, everybody compresses into the same spots. So you've taken all these literally thousands of people and now you're moving them into gyms. I play at Northwood Community Center now, which is where Woodrow Mall used to be. And the numbers there are pretty good. But if you would get over to Perrysburg, where I started to play indoors, in that area in Eastern Y, there will be 40 or 50 people for 3 courts. And there's a system of rotating to get people in. And it becomes too much because you sit too much. And you go out and play for 20 minutes or so, or 30 minutes, and then you sit down for another half an hour, and that's not good. I can play at Northwood, and I can rotate through. It's a well-kept secret.
I was going to ask you if you had any hobbies, but it sounds like this is your hobby.
I do have a hobby. Pickleball is my hobby. Fishing, bike riding, the bike trail, and I have my imprint on the bike trail also, but I love to fish, but I don't fish much anymore. I taught my grandchildren how to fish, the 20-year-old, that's cringe when I say that, and I fished in the Rockies and the rivers and trout fished in the Rockies and rivers there, and it's a blessing that I had a teenager in Colorado who wanted, when I went out there, to go fishing. I mean, sophomore, junior in high school. When are we going to fish, Grandpa? Okay. We're not going home yet. We haven't caught anything. No, we're staying here. We're going to fish.
On the South Platte?
Some, mostly in the Poudre River, and
okay, that's right.
Out there that runs through Fort Collins, so we would go in the river there and some of the streams around there. She fished with me in Montana in Glacier. She loved it. Yeah. Just catching things like mad. That's where she learned to be a true fisherman. When we came back to a cabin, my wife said, "How many fish did you catch?" She said, 20. I said, "No." You didn't catch it. So she's got that part of it down. She had all the skills down, all the fishing skills, but she got to the fisherman's, I'm going to lie a little bit and exaggerate this part. She just winked at me. She said, okay.
Well, it sounds like you've had a wonderful life here in Genoa, and you're still living a wonderful life.
Still do, still love it.
Yeah.
Like I said, great people, great town, wonderful to raise my children in. I think if we ever leave our house that we have now, both my children will be distraught because that's their home. That's where they
Sure.
grew up.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I think anything more that you can think of to talk about?
Oh, don't do that to me because I talk.
Well, you go right ahead.
I'm a talker. No, not right now. But I love to talk. I love to talk to audiences. I'm one of these people who am comfortable in front of one person or two people,
Mm-hmm.
or hundreds or thousands of people. I've done both. I remember being in New York City at a conference, and I walked into part of the conference, and I know the guy running this conference. He said, "Why don't you do this?" I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Why don't you do this?" He explained the talented and gifted program and how I look at it. Okay. So there were like 500 or 600 people in, so I went in unprepared and stood up in front of them and talked for an hour and a half and answered their questions. I said, "Thank you," and I walked back. So I don't mind it. I don't mind talking in front of people.
You've got the gift.
Well, I'm Irish.
Well, with that, we'll draw to a close here, and thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Right.
I appreciate the opportunity to share. It's been great in your background assistant back there.
Thanks a lot.
You bet.